Energy. It's an interesting topic, and it's one that I've thought a lot about. You see, in 2015, I went to the Tony Robbins event, and I saw a fascinating thing. I saw something that took me by surprise. I saw a 60-year-old man, or 59-year-old man, named Tony Robbins. And I saw him up on the stage, and I saw him pump out energy. I mean, when that guy talks, he uses energy. He's always very expressive with what he does. And he's using his body and he's using his words. And I saw him start the day that way. And I saw him 14 hours later still going like this. And in between, I saw him jumping. I saw him getting excited. I saw him using his body. I saw everybody jumping and laughing and having fun together. And I watched very carefully. I watched and I saw that his energy was somehow maintained all the way, 14 hours. And my first thought is, that's impressive. That's impressive. That's impressive for a 59-year-old man. That's impressive for anyone. Anyone who can sustain energy for 14 hours in a peak state at high energy all day. That's impressive. Now, particularly impressive for a 59-year-old man. I thought, how does he do it? And then I started working out something else. I started looking at the calendar. And I started to work out when the Tony Robbins events were. So you've got March, you've got April, you've got May, all the way down, so on and so forth. You've got all these months. And then I saw seminar. There's at least a couple of seminars every single month. So he does this for at least 4 to 6 days, twice a month. This high energy, full on movements, power poses, power punching, you know. And I looked at that and thought, that's incredible. Now I came away from the seminar because I put everything into it. I saw what he was doing and I thought, you know what, if a 50-year-old man can do that, guess what I was going to do? I was going to do more than what a 59-year-old man could do, because how old was I? 39. I was 39 years old. So I thought, he's got 20 years on me, right? So I started punching it out. I was doing heaps, and I think I either matched him or did more than him, because I pushed myself. When we were jumping, I was jumping high, I was going for it, I was fist pumping in the air. By the end of the seminar, every muscle in my back was sore. Every muscle in my arms, legs, every part of my body was in pain. I felt like I just run a marathon race or two. It's just everything was in pain. Not only that, my voice was gone completely. It took me about a week to get my voice back. I was scratchy when I was at home. I could barely talk. It was hard to talk because I used everything. And you know what? I was inspired by this man who gave everything. He held nothing back. He served with everything. He served with his whole heart, with his whole being. And I'd never seen that before. Not to that level. Not to that level. Now, if you think about it in scriptural reference, you think about someone like Jesus Christ, who gave everything. Every drop of blood. Every ounce of effort. Every ounce of energy. He stayed awake all night before the crucifixion. He gave everything. And even his own life. He gave it all. He gave everything. But I saw this man. There was one man, his name was Kimball. He was a president of a religious group, and he said, "My life is like my shoes, to be worn out in service." And I thought about that quote over and over again. I thought about Tony Robbins, thought about the Saviour, and I thought, what is there for me to learn? What is there for me to learn? What's the lesson here for me? So I see Tony in his schedule, and I'm thinking to myself, he gets energized at least these times. So then I went in and started looking at YouTube videos, and I thought, does he get energized more than that? Is it just these times that he gets energized? I discovered he had what's called a morning routine. I didn't know about that. And he called it a priming session. So every day he does something which is called priming. And I discovered that in his priming session, he uses his lungs. He expands his lungs. He uses his posture. He corrects his posture. He does a number of things like feels gratitude, feels love. What's that?
Jumps on a trampoline, doesn't he?
Jumps on a trampoline for the lymphatic system. And he does all these different exercises. So then I started putting two and two together. And I thought to myself, the best way to change, the best way for me to transform, become something different, would be to model somebody. We've long learned that modeling is the best way to change. You can get a coach, which is good. Getting someone that you can model is even faster. So having someone you can model is the best way. A coach will help you. A coach will be there to give you support and guidance along the way. A coach will be there to hold you accountable, to give you things to do and then say, how did you go? Did you complete that? So coaches are great resource to have. But having someone who's got the results that you want, and if you think, well, let's say you decide what you want. I want X, I want Y, and I want Z. These are the things that I want. You find somebody who's already got those. Somebody's got X, the amount of money that I've got, Y, the amount of health that I want, and Z, the relationship that I want. You find somebody who's got those, and they could be different people. You could have one mentor for money, and one person for relationships, and another one for health. You find these mentors, and if you want to get the results that they've got in their life, then what you do is you model them. Modeling the masters, they call it. You find the master who's got what you want, you then model the behaviour. And the more you model the behaviour, they're saying that's the quickest way to achieve anything. So here I was in a situation where I'm looking at what Tony does. He does seminars. All right, he gets pumped up, he gets fired up, he keeps his energy high. Then he does this priming session every day. So I'm thinking, what about me? What about me? If I want to get the results that Tony's got. So he's a life coach. Tony's a seminar leader. Tony's an expert in many different things. And I wanted to get the results that he's got. So I decided that I would, 1, begin priming every day. 2, I would begin holding seminars, and not this regular. I wanted to. In fact, Tony Robbins said that most people at the time when he started doing seminars were doing one seminar every 2 weeks or every month. They might do one seminar every 2 weeks. He started doing 3 every day. That's what Tony did. He said anyone who would listen. He started holding 3 seminars a day, as many as he could. He'd go do a meetup group here, do a meetup group there, and this is the day before meetup group. So that's why now I've started increasing my meetups to at least. I started doing it once every fortnight, and now I'm almost once a week. Because what I'm doing is I'm modelling the master, modelling someone who's got the results that I want. Okay, so I want the results that he's got, in that I wanted the energy that he had in his life. Because if I had the energy, then I knew this. If I've got high energy, I could have a phenomenal relationship. Put it this way. If you've got 2 people, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, and the energy's high, and they're feeling good about life, and they're excited, and they're happy, what sort of relationship do they have? Absolutely. But you get 2 people who have low energy, and they're sad, and they're fighting, and they're arguing, and there's conflict. You're going to have a very different relationship. And so I wanted a relationship that's energy was high, even if that energy was me, even if I was the instigator of creating the energy for the relationship. So 1, I wanted energy to create a good relationship. Second thing, I wanted energy to create great health. And so I looked at Tony, 59 years old, jumping up and down for hours, getting excited, using his body, doing power moves. And I thought to myself, what about me? Here I am, 39. I can't keep up with a 59-year-old. What's wrong with me? Can I keep up with him? I thought I was close. But you know what? Because he'd been doing it for so long, I wasn't doing as much as he was doing. He was doing all the talking, remember. He was doing all the moving. He was doing everything while I'm just sitting there. And I was sitting there with energy in my body, and every time I got up, I moved, but I was sore afterwards. I was in pain. I wonder if he was in pain, or whether he just kept going. I don't know. So anyway, priming 14 hours, I wanted a great health. So I wanted to improve my health. Energy would be required to do that. Next one. what about my finances? So here I was in a situation where, you might as well shut it. Shut it. Here I was in a situation where finances were doing not too well. Finances weren't the best. They were a bit in shambles. See, what had happened is I was paying child support. There was some other situations that happened. We just moved to a new house and we were going backwards financially. And so finances weren't great. And I knew that if I wanted better finances, I needed more energy. See, if I had more energy, I could get a second job. If I had more energy, I could do overtime. I could do whatever I needed to do to make up extra money, extra finances. So guess what I did? Energy. I started doing this morning practice. I started creating energy, and guess what? The relationship became more phenomenal. It was a good relationship to begin with. It became phenomenal. My health. At 39, I broke all of my health records. All of my physical fitness records that I'd even had in my 20s. And I've been an athlete my whole life. When I was 16, I was the Australian karate champion. I went on to do amazing things physically. At 39, I beat all my records. I could do more push-ups, more chin-ups. I could run more, run faster. Everything was better. I could do more handstand push-ups. At 39, I was doing more than when I was 25. Now that is incredible. Yeah. Finances. I started life coaching. So I got 5 clients almost straight away. I started getting clients and money just began rolling into my life through life coaching. So here I've got relationship, tick. So energy helped my relationship along. Having high energy helped the relationship. Having high energy, it's a tick for health. Having high energy is a tick for finances. And what about spirituality? Well, spirituality, when you think about spirituality, it really stands for direction and purpose in life. And you know what? I discovered my purpose. And that's changed everything too. So here I am, tick, 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 and tick. And connectedness, relationship with God, it's better than it's ever been.
And socially would be what? Socially?
Crazy, right? So that comes into relationships. So when you talk about sociality, that's there. Workplace. I'm in a work environment that's a negative workplace. Very negative work environment. Guess what? We've got the most positive workplace in the building.
Excellent.
We just have, because I go there with energy. Now when you've got energy, you can transform every part of your life.
Someone appreciate it.
That's what you can do with energy. Now, we talked about it before, but does energy come from food?
No.
So the answer is, well, yes and no. We know that food is broken down to glucose. The glucose molecules go from the large intestines into the bloodstream, where the bloodstream distributes it throughout the body. That's part of our digestive process, is that we create energy from the food that we eat. Now, glucose is a good thing, and it creates energy, but it's not the only thing that creates energy. You see, if you don't eat, you still get energy. So food doesn't make energy, because if you don't eat, guess what makes energy? Fat cells. Fat cells are converted back into glucose. Then they create energy for the body. Now guess what happens if you've got no fat on your body? Your body begins to use muscles. Your body then begins to use bones and sinews and joints. The body will use whatever it can use to create energy. So energy doesn't come from the food. It does, but it doesn't. There's more energy to be had, okay, than in just the food that you eat. In fact, I read the first chapter of a book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And in that it talks about a man in a concentration camp in Germany, and he was explaining or describing his experience there, and he said that he couldn't believe what the human body was capable of. He couldn't believe that they were still alive. They were being fed about half a cup of soup a day and a small portion of bread, and that was it. And forced to march up to 4 hours a day in the snow. When they went to bed, he said there was 9 of them lying down, spooning each other in a bed with 2 blankets on top. That was it. They were lying side by side huddled in together, and he said if you're the ones on the edge, you were colder. If you're the one in the middle, you're warmer. So he talked about just what the human body was capable of, and none of them would have believed what they could do, but they kept doing it because the brain was designed for survival. And he said that once there was no fat left on their system, their body just began to eat itself away. So energy's still there. Bit of a tragic story, but it just goes to show what is the body capable of, and energy is there. And we can't say, oh, I'm low on energy because I didn't have lunch. It doesn't cut it. You've got energy. You've just got to find it. You've just got to use it. So if it doesn't come from food, does it come from oxygen? Is oxygen the source of energy? Well, it can be, but let me tell you an experience that I had. I was going for my brown belt grading, and this was probably about 6 years ago. And in this grading, after 3 hours of training, I was exhausted. In fact, my muscles began to cramp, like just for no reason. They would just start cramping. Anyway, at that point in time, I was sparring. So right at the end, after you've done all the basics, after you've done all the preliminary stuff, we go into the sparring. That's the kumite, where you're fighting each other. And as I'm sparring these black belts, because there was a row of black belts and I was a brown belt, going for my senior, I was a green belt, sorry, going for my brown belt, I had to fight 16 black belts in order to grade. And one after another I fought them, and there was no rest in between. It was just one after another, and it was tiring and it was hard. This one black belt that I fought did a back spinning kick, and he tried to kick me in the stomach. I stepped forward, grabbed him by the leg, picked him up, laid him on the ground, and kumite straight to his face. I didn't hit him, but I just showed him who was boss. And I kind of wish I hadn't, because afterwards he rolled over, he got back up, and he came towards me and he did another back spinning kick, and this time he connected. And it was hard, and it hit me right in the solar plexus, and it knocked the wind out of me, and I fell on the ground and I couldn't breathe. In fact, I tried to breathe and I went,
It's terrible. Yeah.
I was so winded that I couldn't even get oxygen into my body. Now, it was interesting because this was a grading. There's no retreat, no surrender. You can't just sit on the ground. Next thing I know, there was 2 other black belts, one under each arm. They picked me up, stood me on my feet. I put my feet down. I looked forward. Then the instructor came over and said, "Fight on." I couldn't breathe. I lifted up my hands, and the black belt came forward to attack me. And somehow I started blocking, I started moving, I started striking without breath. I had energy. Energy was inside me, and I could still do it. And this was a learning experience for me. So energy does not come from breath. You don't need breath to have energy. I was fighting without oxygen, and I just kept going. Because the human will, the mind, can do amazing things when it's pushed. Okay, so it's not oxygen. Is it sunlight? It could be. You see, we have a lot of different ideas, like vitamin D is essential for the body. It's going to help with energy. Minerals and vitamins are all going to help with energy. All these things are helpful, but are they the source of energy? What we're going to get to is the source of energy, and the real source of energy, it comes from the mind. The real source of energy comes from the mind. Now, there are things that we can do to increase our energy. For example, we talk about this idea of ATP, if you've heard of that.
No.
Adenosine triphosphate. So what happens is, inside the mitochondria of the cells in your body is a substance called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Now what this substance is, or how it works, if you think of a battery, these are 2 batteries, same size. Okay, one looks a bit bigger, but that's deceiving. It's like one of those puzzles. Okay, so these batteries, let's imagine that one has a charge of this much, and that's full charge because it's an old battery, and this one has a charge of this much because it's a new battery. Okay, now the interesting thing about ATP is that's the energy storage of the cell. So if you've got high levels of ATP, you've got high levels of energy in your cell. And you can use that energy to run, to jump, to do whatever you need to do, any activity. So an athlete, a super athlete, will have very high levels of ATP. This will be the athlete right here. If I can do that. There we go. That's your athlete. Now the other one is your couch potato. Someone who's sitting on a couch and they're storing up their energy, they actually get less of this substance called ATP. And so they'll find that their energy is very low. Now the quickest way to increase your usable energy is through a process called HIIT training, HIIT training. High intensity interval training.
You said that last
Yeah. So when you use high intensity interval training, that's the quickest way to shoot up your ATP levels. So that's energy. That's energy in the cells, and each cell has energy. Is that the source of energy? Is ATP? See, we're going to have energy here, and if push came to shove, and this person needed to do a tremendous feat, guess what? You could do it. I mean, we hear stories about amazing people. There was a woman who found her husband trapped under a car, and she walked over, and something happened inside her where she was able to pick up that car, and her husband was able to pull himself to safety. Now, how could a woman, slight frame, pick up a car? It's not possible. It's not humanly possible. So there is more energy than that. And so when we think about energy like that, where does it come from? Is it our higher self? Is it God? Is it the universe? But there's an energy that's even greater than all that. And I mentioned before about universal energy. So the reason some people get tired is because they're using their own energy. The reason some people don't get tired is they're using universal energy. And if we can tap into universal energy, then we have more to give. And how do we tap into it? It's having a big enough purpose or a big enough why, a big enough reason. If you've got a big enough why, you can do anything. If your why is big enough, if you know that you're doing it, and if your why is self-serving, it's going to be low energy. If your why is about other people, it's going to be here. If your why is big enough, you can do anything, and you can have this level of energy.